The Runaway and Homeless Youth Act came out in 1974, and that was the time the country was looking at de-institutionalizing status offenders, a big long word that basically said up to then we were locking runaways up in jails. And a lot of states unfortunately still do this. But at that time, kids were being released from jails and allowed to go to runaway programs because of the authorization of the Runaway and Homeless Youth Act. In the state of California, 150,000 kids were locked up for being runaways in 1976. A year later, that was down to almost zero.
The Runaway and Homeless Youth Act and the Runaway and Homeless Youth Program really allowed kids to be treated with the respect and dignity that they deserved. You know, they're not running for fun. There's very serious issues happening that causes the youth to leave and to be on the street.
Since 1970, we've probably dealt with over 100,000 families and youth. If they had been dealt with the way they were in 1974, a high percentage of those young people would have been placed in a residential program for delinquent youth. The number of young people that we've dealt with, we have kept thousands of young people out of the correctional system.
Without the Runaway and Homeless Youth Act, there would not be a structure in place to have this national communication system that is absolutely vital in providing crisis intervention, but also intervention to help reunite young people with their families, or when that's not an option, to get them to a safe place and off the streets.
The Runaway and Homeless Youth Act is stronger today because of the 40 years of consistent experience provided by our grantee partners across the country. We could not do this work without them and the energy they provide to help young people and their families address the issue of youth homelessness. The most important steps that we are taking and have been taking over the last, I'd say 3 to 5 years to truly elevate this issue is to get many more of our federal agency partners involved in this work, because they've begun to realize that it's not just about the runaway child and his or her issues. It's about trying to find ways to, in fact, get them in permanent housing situations. The Act defines for us, if you will, what our focus ought to be. It defines for us what our resource needs ought to be. And I think it begins to help us think through more clearly how we ought to better approach the needs of these young people.